Hi everyone, my name is Caylie and I'm a UX researcher at Atlassian. I'm speaking to you today from the lands of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation. Now, Atlassian is a pretty cool place to work as a researcher. Our tools and processes are pretty well established and we have decent researcher coverage across our products. However, that's not always the case in other organisations. As researchers, we're often in a small team or a team of one, and to keep up with demand, we need to upskill our cross-functional team members, in particular UX designers and product managers. We therefore need to ensure that this research conducted by our product teams is of high quality and answers the right questions. In each organisation I've worked, researchers just can't keep up with the demand for those juicy insights to inform decision making, and this creates a need for democratising research. So I have a fair bit of experience in democratising research while maintaining research quality. In this talk, I'll share with you how to go about democratisation in your organisation while maintaining research rigour as well as your sanity. But first, a little bit about me. I've never really known what I wanted to do. I suggested to my careers counsellor that in school that I go on to study anthropology because I'd always had an interest in humans. And he replied, well, what will you do for a real job? We got along well, so this was actually quite funny. So instead, I chose to study Japanese, Mandarin, and linguistics way back when, because I apparently like a challenge. At the time, I wanted to be an interpreter, and I changed my mind. I then studied a Master of Banking and Finance, thinking that the combination of money stuff and Asian language stuff would be useful to someone somewhere. And luckily for me, this hunch proved pretty correct, and I landed a graduate position at National Australia Bank, which is one of Australia's largest banks. I was then lucky enough to rotate through the experience design team, and I was hooked. It made just so much sense to me to conduct research with the people you're actually building products for. So I remained at NAB for a few more years as a UX researcher, and then I jumped across to Seek, one of Australia's largest job platforms. I spent the past year establishing the design research practice at Coles, one of Australia's largest supermarkets, and I've recently landed a gig at Atlassian, a tech giant and Australia's most mature research practice. Cool. So with that out of the way, what's the recipe for building an organisational research culture? Our method for the recipe has 4 steps. First, you need to learn the signs that it's time to democratise. Too early in your organisation's journey and you won't get any takers. Too late and it will be happening without you, potentially in risky ways. Next, you need to set up your UX research team for success. When you democratise, their roles and ways of working will be changing a little, and you need to prepare for that. The next step is ensuring you've got the right tools, processes, and education in place so people are empowered to conduct research well. Finally, once you're getting all those juicy insights, you need to make sure they're being heard in the right places and at the right decision points. I will say now that I've written this talk assuming that there is at least one UX research person in your organisation. If you don't have a UX researcher, that's okay. I'll point out where in this talk you can take parts of the talk and adapt it to your context. Cool, so let's dive into the first step, recognising the need to democratise. Democratisation of research is so hot right now. As many of us may be feeling, for whatever reason, a team's demand for research grows, and UX researchers and the job market just can't keep up with that demand. That demand could come about as a result of a few things. Maybe it's some industry trends like continuous discovery or customer centricity. Maybe it's the organisation realising that research is important and they want to do more of it. Or maybe it's just UX and design and product maturing like other specialisations. To keep up with this demand, many research teams turn to democratising their research processes. And as with just about anything in UX, there's lots of definitions out there regarding what democratising research actually is. For the purposes of this talk, I'm going to define it like this. So democratising UX research means enabling our cross-functional team members to take part in or carry out UX research activities. So let's look at how a research team might reach this point so you can recognise it in your own organisation. And what I'm going to go through is based on my experiences at NAB, Seek, and Coles. So what I'm about to talk through aren't by any means hard and fast rules. This is a generalisation of what I've seen and experienced working in a few different places. So I'd like you to imagine a small research team in an organisation where UX research is relatively new. This team might be a team of one or a team of a few people, and it's centralised. They all kind of hang out together. When a research team is relatively new to an organisation, people with the job title UX research typically conduct all types of research across the product development lifecycle or double diamond. They might be supported by the cross-functional team, mostly design or product, with things like note-taking and synthesis, but the researcher is ultimately responsible for the whole lot. As the research team gets some runs on the board, the demand for research intensifies. This demand could also coincide with industry trends, as I mentioned earlier. And this is your tipping point. This is the point where you need to start thinking about how to democratise so research runs smoothly for everyone and you and the organisation are getting quality results. Your tipping point is telling you two things. A, you need to decide how to best utilise your dedicated researchers. And B, you need to train the designers and product folks to do some research and do it well. So now you know when to democratise. Let's look at how we make that successful. These other parts in the diagram I'll touch on a little bit later. So we're up to the second step now, structuring your team for success. Being a UX researcher can be pretty tough. When you're a UX researcher, you're often confronted with really tight timeframes to get research work done, no one really understanding what the point of view is, and your colleagues kind of get sick of you telling them that their direction or their design needs to change. It can be a lonely world being a researcher, and researchers just need to feel the love. They want to feel loved. We touched on embedding researchers in the previous slide, but that needs to be balanced with the researchers having a home base of sorts, fellow researchers with whom they can swap craft tips and rely on for support. We are humans at the end of the day, and humans need other humans to empathise with their experiences. So let's look at how this plays out in practice. Imagine you're working for a university and you're working on their website, and there's 5 product teams. Product team red, blue, purple, green, and orange. Product teams red and blue work on the student side of the experience, while the other product teams work on the university staff side of the experience. So here they are. So in this example, we've got our team of some researchers over here, and we've got the product teams I mentioned earlier. There's 5 of them. And say in this team of some, you have 2 researchers, these little folks in yellow. Up until now, in your centralised model, they've been jumping between projects and product teams as demand dictated. However, things are getting really busy now, and they can't keep up with the demand. You've reached your tipping point. You've chatted with your researchers, and you all agree training the team to take on some research work will alleviate demand. But where does that leave the research practice? This is where you create domains or product spaces for your researchers to hang out in. Let's look at what that's like. Here's one, and here's the other. Doing this has a few benefits. First, by sticking to a single product space or domain, researchers can take more time to become really familiar with the product, its strategy, and its stakeholders, as well as the current work. This means that the researchers ultimately deliver stronger, more actionable insights that aren't a repetition of what the product team already knows or thinks they know. The researchers' increased product knowledge means that they can talk the talk and ensure the insights are applicable at the right time in the product's life cycle. And finally, the researcher has a product team to belong to do product team things with. If the researcher in question wants to learn more about UX techniques or product management techniques, they can really easily do that. More importantly, they're included in stuff like end-of-year events, in workshops, on emails, and most importantly, in any key decision-making forums about that product. So that diagram from earlier, the one with the different team types, you're now at the midpoint of that diagram where you're starting to have your researchers partner with product teams, and there's more researchers. So let's look at the next steps to make that partnership a success. So we've allocated our researchers to product domains so they have a defined focus and they can deepen their relationships with those stakeholders. Next, you want to define what research work the researchers do and what research work the designers or the product folk can do. Neither role can do all of it, and we're not expecting non-researchers to become researchers overnight. It's a specialist skill after all. Ensure you term this as a partnership between UX research and design or product. Using this terminology sets the expectation that designers and product managers seek guidance from UX research on executing any tactical work, and it's therefore of a high quality and reduces the risk of findings being valid. If we think about the double diamond as it pertains to research, there's two broad categories here: research to build the right thing and research to build the thing right. The model I established at my past organisation, Seek, mirrored this. I came into the practice at a time where designers were beginning their foray into UX research for tactical pieces of work, just focusing within their product. At the same time, continuous discovery was being implemented in the product space. So looking at all this research that was going on, the gap that became immediately obvious to me as a dedicated researcher was exploratory research that spanned not only within a particular product, but also across multiple products, looking at the horizontal experience or journey of a customer rather than just the product vertical. Because designers were conducting research into their own products for the most part, it left a gap for exploratory future-focused research, looking across products and beyond the Seek ecosystem. In addition, specialist UX researchers are typically better equipped to handle the sorts of questions exploratory research asks, as well as tackle the trickier sorts of methods that you might want to utilise at this stage. And they also have more time to do it because they're not trying to do design work or product work on top of that. Ensuring there's a partnership between UX research and product or design when executing the tactical stuff also means your researchers keep all their research skills sharp. So summarising that, you need to give your researchers a place to exist and a purpose if there's other people in the organisation conducting research too. This enables your researchers to do their best work and enables you to retain them, and also benefits the business by providing it with a wide range of data from which they can build great products. So we've covered when to recognise the need to democratise and how to structure your team for success. So let's look at how we build the right infrastructure to support that. So infrastructure, in my view, comprises education, processes, and tools. I'm going to talk in detail about education and processes. Education comprises setting expectations and running some formalised training sessions. First, you need to set the expectation with a broader design and product function around what the UX research practice will do. Outline the structure of your UX research team and what types of research they lead, compared with what types of product and design folk can conduct, all in partnership with their embedded researcher, of course. Make sure to include a point around the researchers being available for coaching and support. That's essential to making democratised research work. Do this as part of an existing ritual or meeting so people have to listen to you, and follow it up with an email or a blog post people can refer back to so they don't forget. Once you've set those expectations, you need to conduct some formalised training, just a little bit to start people off. This ensures that everyone who does research has the same base level understanding of what good should look like. You can start by assessing people's understanding of UX research techniques, and then you can use that as a baseline to run some standardised training and some targeted training for specific groups. For example, at Seek, I ran some broad training for product managers around research fundamentals and some basic note-taking training for one particular squad who wanted to upskill in that area. If you're really pressed for time, train people up on facilitating user interviews and conducting basic concept testing. In my view, this is typically what designers and product managers end up doing a lot of. For facilitating user interviews, you can create a basic exploratory interview template for product and design to use. They can then copy that and adapt the questions to their context. Finally, encourage a culture of peer review and sharing open, unfinished work. Ensure the researchers are setting the example by doing this as well, so designers feel safe to do so too. That peer review culture again ensures research quality and reduces the risk of research being invalid. Set a guideline that no research happens without it being peer reviewed. And I've got here some examples of some education I did at my past organisations. This is explaining types of research at Seek, and this one's from NAB, looking into training people how to ask good research questions, good interview questions. So that's education out of the way. Let's talk about processes. Once you've set expectations and run some basic training to get things up and running, you need to think about enabling your designers and PMs to self-service. This takes the pressure off your researchers over the long run. They can spend less time supporting on the basics and more time supporting them to answer questions that are less clear-cut. In addition, enabling your product teams to self-service uplifts the capability even further. First, you need to create some how-to guides. This is a great activity for that weird time in between Christmas and New Year's where not really sure what time means. And it's also great for Friday afternoons. At Seek, I created some basic how-tos for note-taking, usability testing, writing an interview guide, choosing the right research method, and the process for storing and sharing research, as well as ethics and privacy. Sharing and storing research is pretty important. One of the risks around democratisation is that research kind of just ends up anywhere and you can't find it again. That ultimately costs you time and money. Think about a low barrier way to share and store research so you can use it again. It needs to be low barrier so the people in your org who aren't researchers actually follow the process. For example, at Seek and Coles, I created a research report template in Confluence that acted as the source of truth for the research. The report template only took a few minutes to fill out, which meant that people actually did it. Another important point is ensuring there's some ethics in place around the collection and usage of research data. This will look different depending on what country you're in, so I suggest chatting to your legal team and asking them how to go about storing participant personal information. And once you've done that, write it up somewhere. Once you've got some how-to guides sorted, tell people about them and keep reminding them that they're there so you're creating less work for yourself. Next, you need to create some templates. Your designers and product folk will likely spend the bulk of their time conducting user interviews and concept tests, like I said, so start off with those. You can also have some basic survey templates too, because surveys are the tricky things to get right. Include in each template some basic types of questions that your teams can then adapt for their context. Now, if you don't have a UX researcher handy, that's okay. There are plenty of resources out there. Oh, still going, there we go. There are plenty of resources out there to help you build out some of these things. And personally, I've used the Nielsen Norman Group website a lot. Regarding tools, I'm not going to go into massive amounts of detail, like I said, but I would encourage you to have some kind of intranet to house all your how-to guides, some way to store research so you can find it again, and some kind of survey tool just to start you off. The rest you can get done on a shoestring. Alrighty, so we've covered the first 3 steps in our recipe and we're up to the last step in our recipe, which is embedding the work in the right places. By this point, your researchers, designers, and product folks are all happily partnering up and conducting awesome research. Now you need to figure out how to best embed that research so your organisation is making customer-led decisions. This gets you the successful roadmaps outlined in the description of this talk. So this is the hardest part of the job. Doing research is easy, getting it used is a lot harder. Now that lots of different types of research are happening, you need to spend some time working out where they'll have the most impact and ensuring that research gets heard. Here's our double diagram again. So now that the designers and product folks are conducting research to build the thing right, it's pretty straightforward where this research ends up. Things like ship designs, ship products, or journey maps for a particular product. That's easy. The type of research that your researchers are now responsible for is less clear. Because it's often exploratory and future-focused, it's hard to understand how this impacts the products directly, and sometimes there might even be opportunities to explore new products, stuff your organisation doesn't even do yet. Its impact is longer term, and it's therefore less obvious. The artefacts in which this type of research lives include things like product roadmaps for a journey. Sorry, let me say that again. Include product roadmaps, strategy documentation, or even some journey maps relating to experiences across a particular organisation rather than just one product. Get really friendly with your stakeholders and get them to share these artifacts with you, or better yet, run some co-creation sessions and make them together so you both have ownership over this. At Seek, I would partner with product teams to embed exploratory research insight into their opportunity solution trees, for example. At Coles, I'd work with the group product manager to embed opportunities from research into their forward planning for each quarter. Get really in people's faces and find where those documents take place. However, it's not just artifacts we need to worry about. This research has a long lifespan and we need to breathe life into it beyond the artifact to ensure it gets used in the right places. So once you've figured out the research artifacts in which your researcher's work lives, you then need to get that work in front of the right people. Instead of influencing what the product team works on in the here and now, this type of research influences the future product or problem spaces for the business to then investigate. Research it and they will come as a vibe is not going to work. People are busy and you need to help them draw conclusions. You need to put that research in front of them and really spell it out what it means. So that doesn't work anymore. Bring those decision-making stakeholders along the journey with you and link the insights to the business context. Demonstrate that by incorporating research data, we're increasing the certainty that our strategies and roadmaps are correct. Doing this means that those decision-making stakeholders will trust that you know what you're doing. The follow-on effect from this is that you get invited to more and more important meetings where those decisions are taking place. Or you can set that expectation way back when you're educating your team. Keep being persistent. It's really hard, but don't give up. Keep asking, keep showing your work, keep proving why it's valuable. Keep explaining how it fits in, and the invites will come. Keep an eye and an ear open for meeting titles like quarterly planning, jobs to be done, journey mapping, vision or strategy. That's likely a place where your research will have value. Get into those meetings. After that, both the research work the product teams do and the research work the researchers do will have a place in your company's product roadmaps and also its shipped products. It's about finding the artifact and getting time with the people who own those artifacts. Phew. So thanks for coming along that journey with me. Wrapping up what we learned today, we talked about recognizing the need to democratize and looking for that tipping point. We talked about ensuring your researchers have a home and a purpose. We talked about ensuring there's the right infrastructure in place, education and processes. And we talked about embedding your great work in the right places for maximum impact. And lastly, start kicking goals. Thanks for listening.